All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for being here. So today we are going to be talking about the value of internships. We have a student panel with us, and they'll be talking about their experience doing their internships. We're going to start. So on today's agenda, we have introductions first. I will be asking, my name's Amy, I will be asking panelists after our introduction and our discussion about why you should do an internship and how to register an internship for academic credit. I will be asking panelists questions about their experience in their internships. We'll be talking about what the process was like and what they learned about their internship, how it went. And then we'll have some time at the very end for some Q&A. So to start, if the panelists could please introduce yourselves, your name, your major, your year, and your intern location. Who would like to start? I know we have two right now, and we're going to be joined by another panelist towards the end of our meeting.
Hi everyone, my name is Sneha and I'm a grad spatial experience design student, batch 2023. This is my second year and I did an internship during the summer term. It was um, in this multidisciplinary design studio called Rose Bernard Design Studio, which was in San Francisco.
Thank you for sharing, Sneha. Let's see. Is Jinhwan here?
Yep,
Okay, would you like to share your name, your major, year, and intern location?
sure. Hi everyone, I'm Jinwan. You can call me RJ. I did an internship this summer, for Nissan Design America. I'm in transportation term 5, and now I'm doing my second internship in Germany for Volkswagen. Thank you.
All right. Thank you both for sharing. We'll talk a little bit more about your experience, but first I want to get into why CPD thinks that you should do an internship. And so very briefly, I wanted to share with you a few reasons why we think internships are a really good experience for our students. So first, to start, of course, it's really good for gaining experience. It's a good way for you to learn if you fit in with a company or industry culture, learn about what they value and if it aligns with your values, and see what their goals are and if your goals are aligned with theirs as well. And then, of course, it's also a good networking opportunity. So it's a good opportunity for you to meet industry professionals, develop those professional references and relationships so that you have those for any future opportunities. Next, we also think that it will help build your resume, of course, so you'll be able to enhance your qualifications and your professional skills, and you'll be able to talk about all of that on your resume. Lastly, it's a good way for you to identify your strengths and what you feel that you are especially good at, so that you can take that with you into new opportunities as well. All right, so I wanted to briefly talk about the internship for credit process. I am going to do a quick summary of what that process looks like if you do choose to register your internship for credit or apply to register your internship for credit. So I won't be covering everything here, but we will be covering like an overview of what that process is like. So to start, in order to be eligible to register or apply to register your internship for credit, undergraduate students need to have completed at least 70 units or credits. Grad students need to have completed at least 30 units or credits. For your GPA, you need to have had at least, a 2.5 cumulative GPA if you're an undergrad student. If you're a graduate student, you need to have at least a 3.0 cumulative GPA. And then for students that are studying on an F1 visa, you need to register or verify with the international student advisors. You need to verify your eligibility with them, and then also get curricular practical training, or CPT employment authorization from international student advisors before you start an internship. So they can help you through that process and creating the documents that you need to submit along with your application. And then there's a few requirements that we need your internship to meet as well. One of those is that the internship must be at least 10 weeks and fall within Art Center's 14-week term schedule. So let's say you're registering an internship for credit for this current fall term, and you started 2 weeks before the fall term started. You need to be working for at least 10 weeks into the fall term, so at least until week 10. And then another requirement is that students be assigned to a supervisor who is a professional with expertise, education, and training in your field of study. For academic credit, students can receive either 3 units or 6 units per semester for up to a maximum of 12 units total. So for each internship, if you want to receive 3 units for it, you need to be working a minimum of 12 internship hours, or about 126 hours per semester. If you want to receive 6 units for it, you need to be working at least 24 hours per week, or about 252 hours per semester. And again, for a maximum total of 12 units total. So you can do 4 3-credit internships, or you can do 2 6-credit internships. And then tuition, of course, will be charged per unit of credit that's earned. Now, for the actual application process, you should have once you have a verbal offer, you should turn it into a formal offer. So by asking them to have it in writing, ask for an offer letter. It should have the following information. And this is a good way for you to get confirmation that the position, confirmation of the position, and that it protects, it just so that it protects you if the internship doesn't turn out to be as promised. But the first piece of information your offer letter should have is a statement saying that the organization is accepting you as an intern. You should also have the start and end dates of your internship so that we can verify that it is eligible to be registered for credit. And then we should also have the number of hours that you are working per week, so that, again, we can verify that you'll be working the correct, or the minimum required hours in order to receive the number of credits that you want to receive. We need to have your rate of pay listed on there so that we know which employer agreement to send your employer. We need to know what your position title is, the name, title, phone number, and email address of your supervisor. And then lastly, a brief description of your responsibilities, their educational value, and relevance to your area of study. Now, the next step would be to meet with a department chair. You'll need to discuss, the first thing is your learning objectives. You need to develop those with your department chair. They'll need to approve those. And then the second thing is you'll need to discuss which courses you'll be waiving with that internship. Lastly, if you're studying on an F1 visa, you need to do one more step. You'll need to connect with an international student advisor to, again, check your eligibility status and get your work authorization. And then when you're actually submitting the application, you'll need to submit an additional form. And the international student advisors will help with that as well. Some important deadlines you should know. So CPD is required to approve internship for credit applications by Friday of week 1. Friday of week 2, petitions are due. So you can read about the petition process. If you don't meet the CPD deadline on Friday of week 1, you can read about the petition process on our website. And what that looks like, your petition would need to be approved by the petitions committee. If it is approved, then CPD can review your application for approval. So now that we've finished with that, I want to move on into the panel discussion. and ask our panelists a few questions. So to start, I wanted to ask our panelists, when did you start your search? And how did you feel during your search versus after finding your internship? What was that process like? How far in advance did you start your search before you actually got your internship?
Um,
For me, okay,
yeah,
go ahead. No worries.
go ahead. I'll wait.
Um, for me, I started my research. I think I started researching when my first term got over. That was fall 2023, and I started looking for internships or any open positions um, in December. But I started actively looking for internships from January 2024 and started applying through February. And it was a continuous process till May is when I got my internship offer officially. It was, I think the initial process was very stressful because for me personally, like I did not have a lot of peers who were interested in doing an internship or who were going to pursue one. And it felt like the peer support or the friend support that I could use, I didn't have that. I had people outside of my industry to guide me a little bit, but that didn't feel enough. And so what I started doing was networking and started connecting with alumni and people who are in my industry or have been through this process. And that helped me a lot, which was a relief um, because people out there, if you try to connect with them, they're out there to help. So that was very relieving for me.
So to confirm, thank you for sharing, Sneha. To confirm, did you start or actually apply for the internship that you did about a month or two before you were actually offered the internship?
I applied for that particular office in the beginning of May. I had
Okay.
to wait for, I think, almost a week for my application to get processed and for them to return back if I was being offered, um, if I was being called for an interview or not. And so almost like 2 to 3 weeks, the process took almost 2 to 3 weeks to get finalized.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. RJ, would you like to go next?
Yeah. For me, for my first one, it took very long. I think it depends on whether how desperate you are to finding an internship. So the first one, I was really desperate. I really wanted an internship. So I started researching about 7 months before the first offer. So I think it was April that I came to our center after my vacation, start searching, and then I got an offer on September that year, and then I got in the following year, January. So yeah, it really depends on how much you wish to get an internship and get that opportunity to work with the professionals. Um, yeah, and for my second one, it was really quick compared to the first one. I researched about like, so I was offered on June, June, yeah, June to July, but I was researching on May. Yeah, so kind of
Okay.
depends on companies too. Mhm.
So how would you compare the first internship, the application process? Was that like a longer waiting period between the time you applied and the time you were offered versus the second internship? Was that a shorter waiting period?
Um, the waiting period depends also with like where you're going. So for the first one, it was within the United States. So the process was really quick, but the TO, like the leftover seat for my internship experience, was kind of postponed because they had something um, internally at the company. So yeah, it took that long, but like my second internship in Germany, the offering process was very really quick, but the
Mhm.
visa process was very slow. So it took me 3 months to get the visa.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And so for the first internship, so you said it didn't take very long, the application process. How
Yeah.
long before you applied did you actually start or did you get the offer? Like a month? Was it like a couple weeks?
It was 2 weeks
2 weeks. Oh,
for
wow. Okay.
yeah.
And so for the second internship, you said it took a couple of months since it was
Yeah,
out of the
3 months.
US.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for sharing. And I wanted to ask you both, what, well, when you actually found your internship, how did you find it? Was it, I know Sneha, you mentioned some networking. Was it through networking that you found your internship? Or did you find it just in your search, like on LinkedIn, a specific job board? How did you hear about it? Did you check Art Center Connect's job board? Um, yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about that.
Uh, I think I had explored all the ways of finding an internship because I was very determined that I want to pursue one. So I had alerts on LinkedIn. I had search going on through the board, CPT board, and I was networking at the same time. But at the end, there was an alumni that I had been in contact with on and off for a very long time. And I tried to stay connected. And so when I was talking about internships, and I was asking her how to go about it. She connected me with the recruiters, or she basically spoke to them directly that if they have an opening for an internship, and they said yes. And I then searched on LinkedIn, and they did have an opening because I wasn't really aware if that office in particular had an opening. But through her, I was able to recognize that. And then I applied subsequently. But I think for me, it was networking that played an important role in getting the internship.
Great. Thank you for sharing. What about you, RJ?
Yeah, similar to Sana. Um, I also researched anywhere I could find any jobs, like Indeed, LinkedIn, Instagram, of course, Art Center Connect, and anywhere I could find. And I agree, networking is the most direct and like the fastest way to get their contacts, like mails and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. And how many interviews did you both go through? Was it one interview, a few? How long did it take for the employer to get back to you after you interviewed with them?
So in total, I did with the offers, I did 5 interviews and
Was
then
that for
I'll
one position?
yeah, for exterior design. Yeah.
Okay. And what about for, so was that for the internship inside of the US? That was five interviews that you
No,
did?
no, no. Total interviews
Okay.
were
How many did
five.
you do for each?
What do you mean? How many did I do for each?
Like once you
Uh-huh.
applied, how many times did you interview with the employer? And then
Uh,
how long did you wait to get offered the job?
yeah. Like bigger companies usually have steps. So they do kind of like first interview with the HR, second interview with like the designers, and the third with like the like the head of design and stuff. They're
Mhm.
kind of differentiated in steps, and like smaller companies, they just do one interview and then they're really fast getting back to you. Yeah.
Okay,
And the interviews were about 1 hours long every time. And I got asked like 5 or 6 different questions.
good to know. Thank you. What about you, Sneha? How was your experience like?
Since the place that I interned at was a smaller studio, so I directly had an interview with the creative director, both the creative directors, and it was an hour long, but that was the only interview that I had to go through. It did take them almost a week, or I think more than a week, to get back to me,
Mhm.
offering me the internship. But yeah, like it actually depends on the size of the company and the number of steps that they have as protocol. If you're looking forward for a smaller studio or boutique studios, then there are higher chances of you having to go through one interview compared to like multiple interviews.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing both your experiences. I wanted to also talk a little bit about what your reasoning was for wanting to do an internship. Of course, to gain the experience, is there any other reasons you wanted to share for why you picked those specific internships?
I think for me, ever since I started the course, it was somewhere there in my head that I have like the summer term is the only term as a grad student that you get to explore your personal interests. And being an international student, I think it was very important for me to know how the industry here actually works and how we approach work. More than just designing, learning about design and stuff, it was important to know the work culture and how things operate here. How, like, for me as a spatial designer, the standards are different here compared to where I come from or where I've worked previously. So it was very important for me because while we're in school, it gives us a lot of space to do stuff creatively, but that's not how the industry works. And I knew that from my previous experience, it had to be it was actually very different from my previous experience, where I worked as a full-time employee, but it was very important for me to get this exposure before I actually step into the industry, after graduating as a full-time employee, to get a glimpse and just a head start to the whole process.
Great. Did you want to add to that, RJ?
Yeah, for me, it's it could be a little bit funny, but I really wanted to see internal designs, how they design, and because I knew like those design in the studios are not coming to out to the world, and I really wanted to see that. So yeah, that was my main reason I really wanted an internship. Yeah.
Okay, thank you both. Thank you both for sharing that. I also wanted to talk a little bit about what it was like for you both working on a team of professionals, professional artists and designers. What was it like being a student in that space? Could you explain to me your experience, your different experiences?
Um, for me, I think my experience was very different in the sense like the team members that I worked with or the office in itself didn't really make me feel like I was a student because they gave me the opportunity to hold responsibilities for certain projects, which was equal to being a full-time employee or, someone who has a lot of work experience. So, which was I really appreciated that. But they also kind of understand that you're coming through school, so they're there to help you guide through things. So there's a lot of guidance. There's a lot of um, you know, internally they try to help you out in figuring out things that we as students don't really learn, which is more on the functional aspect of how we carry projects. Like it's there, like we can learn design obviously through this process, but what's important is to from start to finish, how do we execute the project? And like, not everyone comes from prior experience. Like, there are students who don't have experience at all. So it was I really appreciated the fact that they took the effort to guide me through steps and to teach me how things work in the office or how things work in the industry. They also encouraged me to go to events and stuff, which would help in further networking and building connections. So I think that was very helpful and I really appreciated that.
Great. Thank you for sharing. RJ, did you want to talk a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing with her. They don't treat you as students. They treat you as experts in the areas you study. But at the same time, it's it could be kind of scary because they are expecting some like very fresh new things from you. So it might be might might generate some stress, but yeah, I really appreciated the designers treating me as another designer. Yeah.
And given both your experiences, um, would you say, or what are some things rather that you would say you learned in your internships that you don't think you could have learned in your classes?
Um, for me, I think personally, it was one of the biggest challenges that I faced was dealing with actual clients and actual constraints, which is time, money, and clients, of course. But when we're in school, there's a hypothetical brand per se to deal with or client. But when you're actually working with them, their expectations are very different and you have to be in alignment with them. So that was very difficult or challenging for me. But I think through this process of being on a project and like taking leadership on projects helped me kind of learn how to balance that, like projecting or presenting your ideas, but also meeting their expectations and not overwhelming the client with, a lot of ideas and obviously meeting the time and money constraints.
Mhm.
So I think that is what I learned. And I also um, felt a personal growth where I think communication and confidence is what this experience helped me enhance personally. I mean, college, yes, it helps us. There are mentors and professors trying to like cultivate that culture, but there's still that hesitance. There's still this, you get intimidated when you're in a professional setting versus when you're with your own friends in class. Like it's different. So this experience actually helped me overcome that, even if it was like 1%, but that was helpful.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. For me, the first thing I noticed was the pace. So for transportation design students, we have 14-week schedule for maybe maximum 3 projects. But in the real studios, you're expected to like shrink that into 1 week or 2 week. You are expected to provide the outcome and result after 2 weeks, like model animation and in like very professional standards. So the pace was really a challenge for me because I was very used to schools procedures. And the second one is also she talked about it, but we're designing a product for the real customers. So the challenge was like the engineering stuff and the aerodynamics and like physics that I had to really discuss about with the engineers. So I can't do some weird and wacky stuff that I used to do when I was in school. Yeah, that was my challenge.
So like working with others and making sure that you were all on the same page with your
Yeah.
designs. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. I know you kind of touched on this, Sneha. You touched on challenges that you faced and how or what you learned from those challenges. Um, for both of you, is what would you say is the most challenging thing that you faced in your internship? Is there a particular experience that you might want to share? What did you learn from those experiences, and how did they become learning moments for you that promoted growth?
Like I said, for me, like balancing the communication between your own ideas or um, and the client expectations, that was hard because we, as spatial designers, we're taught about brand strategy and we do a lot of branded projects. But I was responsible for doing this brand rebranding for a hotel group, and it was challenging because it just like kind of showed me the real picture where it's like the end decision is the client's decision. And there was a day when there were certain disagreements between the creative director on our end and the client, and but the client made it very clear that the end decision of what we put for the presentation would be their call. No matter how much like you can try and convince clients as much like you can, but at the end of the day, it's their call. And that's not how things work in college. Like it's all open in the air. Like you can do anything you'd like to, but that's not how the real world projects work. And also like in school, we're kind of especially in grad school, we're doing projects all on our own. There's not a lot of team projects that we're involved in. On the other hand, in the industry, you're working with people 24/7. Constantly, there's a team that's involved in a project. You're never single-handedly doing a project, which sometimes is difficult because there can be communication gaps between people. You might not be able to understand the other person's perspective. They might not be able to understand yours. And that kind of creates these small frictions, which we're not used to. So I think um, like those are the biggest challenges when you work in the industry versus when you're in school.
And how would you say you overcame those challenges? Was it like
I
compromising or just communicating differently?
I think for me, communicating differently and being honest about my opinion
Mhm.
was what made a difference and what made it better and easier for me. Like people, what I noticed was people were perceptive to listening and understanding, but there is a way to communicate your ideas. There's a way to communicate your things, and you need to get that right. So if you get that right, people are receptive of, like your opinions or your ideas. So that's what worked for me, I think.
And you said there's a way to do that. How would you describe that?
I think one, being honest about what you think, but also acknowledging that the other person might not agree with it. And like your way is not always the right way. I mean, there's no right or wrong. You have an opinion, but it's important to acknowledge that the other person might have a different take on it is important. Just acknowledging the fact that people might think differently from you makes a difference in how you communicate and listen to each other.
Thank you so much for sharing that. RJ, did you encounter any similar challenges, or would you say that you encountered different challenges? Do you have any specific experiences you wanted to share?
Yeah, but I wanted to say that school and internship experience is kind of similar. It's not that different to what you do in school. So for me, I learned a lot about time management through school life. Like you have to do this and then you have like 50 pages of sketches to do. So that was one thing that I learned, but it was the same when I went to the studio. It just was the pace that was a little different. So for example, last week my boss told me on Friday we had a sketch meeting. My boss told me he wanted some update on my design, but then I didn't know he was traveling next week, so he wanted me to update the design on and have a sketch review on Monday next week. So I had 2 days and my weekend. So yeah, it's the school. I really appreciate our center that they teach us how to like design, but also very important thing, time management. Yeah.
That's great.
So
Thank you
yeah,
for sharing.
it's a very similar experience. Yeah.
And we were joined by Elizabeth, our third panelist. Elizabeth, we're just talking right now about challenges that you've all encountered in your internships, and if you had any like learning experiences that helped promote growth for you. But before I ask you any other questions, do you mind sharing your major, what year you're in, and where you interned?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth. I am a creative direction student. I am now in my final term. I have had 3 internships that have all been a little bit different, which I have liked because I've learned a lot about different sort of avenues that all have to do with advertising, and that is what I would like to be post-graduation, is a junior art director at an ad agency. So I did an internship at Hammett, a handbag company in Redondo Beach, and for them I did graphic design, but it was a very small team, so it was nice that I was able to help with the sort of concept of photo shoots for a lot of their seasonal handbag drops and their catalogs. So it was nice that I had a little more creative freedom because it was a small company. I got to wear a lot of hats. I also did an internship for a publicity company that specialized in publicity for musicians and music venues. So publicity is also an important part of advertising, but I think maybe a more traditional sense where I don't think it is as like artistic. It's not what you would study at art school, but it was still nice to learn how that works in case I ever need to communicate with somebody about the publicity for a creative project. And then I also interned for a social media agency where I did a lot of graphic design and also helped with photo shoots because they did a lot of their own like content creation for a lot of range of businesses from like cafes and restaurants to also clothing brands and yeah, just everything, which was also nice to see the variety, and it felt more like an agency, which is the world I want to go into. So it was nice to see how you could balance multiple projects that had really nothing to do with each other. And I thought that was fun because, so yeah, that made me really realize that I would like to be in that setting instead of being somewhere in-house where you're focused really on one brand. So that nicely solidified that thought. Yeah, I'd say the best thing I learned was just how important creating relationships with your working team members is because I still am in contact with a lot of them. Some of them have referred me to other people. I get work freelance from one of my old bosses, which is very nice. So yeah, it's just nice to like grow your community and network and be friendly and make friends because you never know what it might lead to.
Thank you for sharing, Elizabeth. That's actually leads me to my next question. I wanted to ask you all what you found to be most valuable about your internship, and if there's anything that you feel really helped you grow personally and professionally. Did Sneha or RJ, do you want to add to any of that?
I think what for me it was um, the sense of responsibility that I felt with projects and the freedom that I had on certain projects as an intern, which is very rare, was one of the most crucial part of my experience. And also like being able to connect with people coming from different backgrounds. And it's just not the people in your team. They're people like in our industry as a spatial experience designer, we have vendors, we have outside contractors, we have so many other people who are involved in the project. And being able to connect with them and network with them opens a wide range of um, opportunities for you. You learn a lot of things from people. You get insights into how the industry is working. And also, like for me personally, I had never explored hospitality industry before, and I got exposure to that, which made me realize that you always have different areas to explore, and you with every experience, it just adds to your you know, experience. It just adds to your understanding of what you like better, or like what could be an opportunity for you in the future to explore.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
And I also wanted to add I used to think going to interns, I really valued the brand names. For example, I really wanted to go to Audi, but what I learned through my two internships, it's all about people that you work with, and they're always friendly, and they're always open to be your friend. So yeah, that was what I learned most through my internships. I think
Thank
that's the most valuable thing um, that you should look for. Yeah, being friendly and cooperative. Yeah.
thank you for sharing that. Before we get into the Q&A, I want to ask you all just one more question. What advice would you give to students that are thinking about applying to internships soon or are currently applying? What do you wish that you had known when you started, if there's anything?
I think for me, I wish I had known better ways to approach it, or like more efficient ways of approaching the internship, or like ways of connecting with the right kind of people who would lead you into the right direction. Um, and it is very important to think about getting these experiences, and you should always be open to these kind of opportunities that come your way. As RJ said, it does not really matter what brand or what company, how big of a company or small company you're working with. You can always find your area of interest, or you can always make your way in that place, and you will leave with some learnings for sure. And you should always be open to that idea. And it's with the industry kind of being in a very hard place right now where there are not a lot of opportunities or openings in most spaces, it is important to network with people because that helps a lot. So any opportunity or any networking, events that you can go to or attend, they're important, and staying connected with people. More than just looking for a referral, it's important to just seek guidance. Like, yes, you would love a referral from a person, but it's also important to know their experience or their process, and you can learn from that a lot. So I think that for me is very important, and I would advise all the students to do that.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's great for students to know. Is there anything else anyone wants to add before we open it up to Q&A for students?
I'll just say that I think some of us maybe are slow to think we're ready to do certain steps, and it's just when are we really ever going to be ready? So it's nice to just start applying because you never know. And of course, there are a lot of dream internships, but I think to sort of like broaden your net because a lot of those are competitive and still apply and hope you can get them and give it your all. But I don't think limiting your options is a good idea either because any experience is a good experience and might add something to your resume that when that dream company hosts another opportunity, you'll look like you're more prepared for it. So I just think start looking.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Elizabeth. Anything you want to add, RJ? If not,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
okay. Okay, go
So
ahead.
my first one, everyone said we needed three projects in our portfolio, but I didn't listen and just applied through LinkedIn, just sent like 100 messages to people, and then I got one interview with P and Farina. And yeah, just there's no um like how can I say, just don't wait to um uh, sorry,
That's okay. Take your time.
you are always ready, so just don't hesitate to um,
To start the process.
yeah, start the process. Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you all for sharing. I want to open it up for students. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself as well. Let's see, we have a question in the chat. What are some ways to connect with alumni? So I can answer this, but if there's some ways that you all connected with alumni, do you want to, anyone want to share about how you did that?
I'd like to,
LinkedIn. Go
yeah,
ahead.
LinkedIn, same. LinkedIn is the best way to connect with alumni and further your network.
Yeah, so you can definitely check LinkedIn. If you go to the Art Center's page on LinkedIn, there's a tab labeled alumni. So if you click alumni, you can use the filters to view what they studied, what they're doing now. You can type in keywords to narrow down your search, and you can connect with people that way. Once you connect with them, you can even do an informational interview, and those are really meetings where you can ask industry professionals about what they do, their story. So you're not asking for a job, but you're just connecting with them to hear about what their experience was, to hear their story. Another question in the chat was, what platforms like LinkedIn are recommended for reaching out to employers? That I know of, LinkedIn is great. I think you can also check directly on company websites. If you go into, sometimes they have like a company directory, or if there's a smaller company, they'll have somewhere on there the information for the different roles and people filling those roles. So you can also reach out to people that way. Is there any way that you all reached out to others that wasn't through LinkedIn,
Instagram.
Instagram? Yeah, that's great. Another great suggestion. Any other questions? As a first-term grad student, when should we start applying for summer internships? So it depends when applications open up for the companies that you want to apply for. But it would be good practice to start looking at the very least the term before, but you could even start looking in the 2 terms before the summer so that you can see what applications are already open and accepting applications.
Yeah, to add to that, everyone has different windows of when their internships take place and when their applications open. So you really just need to monitor by either following those, companies on LinkedIn, or you can even on LinkedIn set up an alert for job titles, and it'll alert you every time something new becomes available, and you can change it to a geographical location or all of United States or remote. And that's really helpful because you don't need to constantly be scrolling through all these other jobs that have nothing to do with what you're studying. So that's nice to keep up to date.
Yeah, and some companies or organizations already have internships posted for next summer. So definitely look into the companies that you're looking to intern with to see if they have anything posted. The next question here is, how did you work on your resume and portfolio to prepare for applying?
I
I
worked with
think,
CPD.
yeah.
Okay, you met with
Yeah,
CPD.
yeah, I sent emails back and forth, and they sent me feedbacks, and I also shared it with my colleagues too. Yeah, compared their resume with mine. Yeah, that's how I made my resume.
Great. Was it Elizabeth? Did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll add to it. I was recommended, I've had just like nice open conversation with a lot of my teachers, who, when I ask questions, they give me guidance. And one of a piece of good advice I got was to stay up to date with industry professionals that you admire. look what their work looks like, look what their resume looks like, and don't copy, but you can be inspired and see what, because a lot of these people, they represent something beautiful and talented. So you can take snippets of everybody's talent to, be inspired by and create something that looks like you are professional.
Yeah, and we have lots of good resources on our CPD website as well, which Shay dropped the link for in the chat. So you can refer to the resources we have there. You can also schedule an email review of your resume. You can schedule a one-on-one appointment to get feedback on your resume or your portfolio website. Anything you want feedback on or need support in, we're here to help. You can set up different appointments with us. We have another question here. How did you guys manage your time with the internships alongside with your schoolwork?
I think since I did my internship for credits, I wasn't taking any classes at Art Center, but I still had back end work for my thesis that happens with graduate students in the second year. But I think internship is the time where you actually have extra time on hand to do things other than just working, like I also had the time to kind of explore my personal hobbies or like things like that, which you necessarily don't get the time during school. And I had a lot of time on hand after I would go back home to research on my thesis or, work on my thesis. So I think what's important is when those couple of hours when you're at work, you put all the effort, but it's not like art center. You're not working 24/7. So during the internship, you have like a time frame that you're working. And what I really appreciate is that the employers don't really expect you to work after work hours. There are certain times when, yes, there's a deadline and you have to, but those are rare. Like it's not every day that you're working like more than 8 hours or something. So it does allow you time to do other things.
Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else want to add to that?
Just, yeah, agree that you have your set time, and it's helpful because at Art Center, you're like constantly having to think about your project, and it's a lot easier, I think, to manage the time because there's like two pretty separate categories of like, okay, I'm in internship brain mode, and that's when you're on the clock. And every other part, because I did school at the same time as the internship. So just when I went to my internship was part-time, Tuesdays, Thursdays, I couldn't really think about school, but then I had all those other days where I wasn't at my internship to focus on those.
Thank you for sharing, for adding to that, Elizabeth. RJ, did you want to add to that? If not, no problem.
No.
No. Okay, another question here, are internships paid or voluntary? So there are paid and unpaid internships, but in order for employers to meet federal guidelines, if I'm not mistaken, you do need to be paid. If it's an unpaid internship, you would need to be receiving school credit for it. Any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourselves, or you can also type them in the chat. All right, we still have about a little less than 5 minutes. So if you have any questions, feel free to hang back. Otherwise, thank you all for joining. And thank you to the
Yeah,
panelists for sharing all of
Thank
your
you.
experience.
I have one question.
Oh,
Uh,
sure, go ahead.
does CPD offers assistance in, let's say, for example, if I have a targeted couple of companies that I want to apply for and I want to prepare for, does CPD offers assistance in preparing for that?
Yeah, does CPD offer assistance in preparing for the jobs that you want to apply for or the internships you want to apply for?
Right.
Yes, we do. So if you want to do like a mock interview, or if you want to get your materials reviewed, resume, portfolio, anything else you need to submit, we can support you in that.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right. If that's it, thank you all for joining. Thank you to the panelists for joining and for talking about your experience doing internships. If you do have any questions, I'm going to pull up my information just in case. I'll share my screen really quickly. So this is our information. This is our CPD email address, our website with our resources, our Instagram page if you want to follow us for any upcoming events, and well, this is my personal contact information if you want to email me and ask for any resources. And these are some upcoming events you might be interested in. If you want to register, you can do that through Art Center Connect. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.